Welcome to the Talented Learning Show podcast series, episode 97, with your host, independent learning tech analyst, JohnLeh. Today, I interview Frances Kleven, Senior Director of Customer Experience at the LearnUpon LMS, about the intersection of customer ed industry data and real-world customer ed execution. You can find more of our fiercely independent content at TalentedLearning.com. Welcome back, listeners, to the Talented Learning Show. On this show, I'm fortunate to interview the world's leading experts in extended enterprise learning technology for both the vendor and the practitioner sides of the fence. And today, we're joined by an expert who lives squarely on both sides at the same time. I'm really excited for this conversation. Frances brings a deep background in education, spanning higher education, online education innovation, and now nearly 7 years at LearnUpon, where she leads the enterprise customer success and customer education strategy. Frances is also one of the expert voices featured in LearnUpon's recent Customer Education in 2025 report. And that's a global study exploring how customer education is evolving, what challenges leaders are facing, how they're scaling their products, what's the measurable impact. It's really interesting and deep. And in this episode, we're going to connect the dots between the data in the report and the day-to-day reality of customer education leaders, and particularly Frances. If you're working to mature your learning program, improve your tech stack, or tie learning to business value better at your organization, this episode is going to give you field-tested advice and really strategic insights to move forward. So let's get going. Frances, welcome to the Talented Learning Show. It's sure great to have you here.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, for those that might not know, why don't you give us a quick overview of who LearnUpon is, and we'll start there and start digging in.
Yeah, LearnUpon is a learning management system. We are headquartered in Dublin, but we have offices now all around the world. We work with our customers, are training their employees, they're training their customers, and sometimes training their members. So those are the core groups of audiences that our customers focus on. And so that's where our product and our service teams are designed to enable those customers to provide training programs for the audiences that matter to them.
Wow, cool. So that's a nice intersection audience, basically customer education provider, an LMS provider that has to provide customer education for their clients to provide customer education down the chain. So it sounds more confusing than it is. But the interesting thing is Frances has a great role that is really aligned to lots of listeners and what they have to do. So why don't you tell us about what your role is in the organization, and we'll keep going.
Yeah, so and this sort of makes sense of why this is where my role ended up, but my background has always been in education. So I first was an instructor and then working at universities on their digital learning strategy and then with ed tech companies. So like education has always, maybe not intentionally, but has always been the theme. So when I joined LearnUpon, I oversaw their customer success team. So that was our customer success managers and implementation consultants who were working with our customers on using our product. And so I was really working with a team on how do we educate and train and consult with our customers. And to be honest, it probably wasn't until 2 or 3 years in that I really understood that what we were doing was customer education. I thought we were doing, product training, or we were being customer success managers, or we were doing product onboarding. But now customer education is part of my role as well. So I oversee our customer community, and then we have a training university that we built on our own platform. So but in thinking about now, customer education is our face-to-face interactions with our customers, and also customer education is our digital strategy. So our on-demand content and our customer community are all part of our customer education experience at LearnUpon.
Wow, that's great. That's great because you use your own tools to for customer education, which by default I think will teach you what's working great and what's not to help you make the whole product better. On
And And I would say also, and I will say this in reflecting back on it, The humbleness that comes from doing the thing that you're teaching people how to do, and then when you're doing it yourself, to be able to say, this is really hard, and this is where we know we should be here, but we're not. And we haven't had time to do that, or we haven't improved that. And so as much as sometimes I feel like it is an embarrassment to say, look, this is a best practice that we aren't following, but it's been a really good empathy exercise. And I think it's strengthened our customer relationships where we're able to say what we haven't done well. And we've also been able to say, hey, that thing you're doing, we want to learn more about it because what you're doing is better than what we're doing. So I think it's provided a really nice synergy in the way that we work with our customers and think about thought leadership as more of a collaboration than just we own all the thought leadership that we disseminate to our customers.
Wow, that's a great outcome. That's a great outcome, and also a great transition into the 2020-25 customer education report that your organization sponsored. Because I think nobody knows how to do it right. You know, nobody does because it's a
Oh,
new evolving field, and so we're
yes.
all experimenting, we're all learning. And your report helped, or the report helped pull that together and give a bigger snapshot of what the industry is doing to give a guidepost to all of us. Can you tell us about the report, how comprehensive it is, who did it, who were the respondees, the survey? Give us the logistics of that, and then we'll get into some facts in that thing.
Yeah, so it's our customer education in 2025 white paper. We wanted to talk about where customer education is headed, but we also wanted to ground it in what are people doing right now. I think that's a part of it too, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but making sure that people understand and see themselves in stages of where people are now so that we're not just presenting the view of 2 years from now where customer education will be and people feel like we'll never get there. So we worked with 602 customer experience leaders and practitioners around the globe, representing 25 plus industries. And we were working with them to understand how companies are prioritizing and scaling those programs. So what was the role that customer education was playing in their organizations? How is it being spoken about? How was it considered something that was integral? And then where would they like to grow those programs? And then also where do they see themselves now? And that really helped us build both an understanding of where customer education was prioritized in organizations, but also an understanding and defining a maturity model so that we could help. And, we're ourselves customer zero in this of what are the different maturity models in customer education so that we could help people understand where they are and not be just left with the you must do customer education and we have to start today and not knowing what that looked like or what step one was.
Yeah, and it's a long journey, and so step one seems scarier than it really is. You just have to get going.
It is,
As
and
it,
it's like in some ways, it's like customer education is such a generic term and right, education's not new. So I think sometimes people feel really uncomfortable saying they don't know where to start or they don't know what that means because it doesn't sound like something that's new or difficult to understand. But when you dig into it, most people don't know much about it, and that's from us as well. Like this is emerging, and so we need to be honest about defining terms and helping and meeting people where they are.
yeah, it's a big topic. When I started writing about it 12 years ago at Talented Learning, I was fearful that I'd run out of things to say, and now we're a few hundred articles in, and there's always the next one. So it keeps on getting deeper and deeper. One of the headline stats from the report was that 93% of the organizations surveyed had increased their investment in customer education over the prior 12 months. What do you think is driving that?
Yeah, some of it, and again, I'll speak from our experience too of and a lot of the customers that we're working with are technology companies, SaaS companies. And so some of it is a maturation of SaaS companies and as part of that, you're at some point you're starting to put all the pieces together of the things that maybe you've bootstrapped along the way. So your onboarding team, your customer support team, your knowledge base articles, maybe you did have a university. And so some of the investment, I think, is not we're starting investing in something that we haven't been doing at all. It's saying we have all of these things that we're doing to help our customers use our product more successfully and to retain them. And let's resource that more heavily, both in the people that we have overseeing that and the technology that we need to deliver that. And so I think that's where some of the investment is coming as those companies are talking about their tech stacks, as they're talking about how do they have more of an overall strategy of their technology solutions. And so I think that's driven some of we need to invest in customer education as more of an umbrella term. And then I think a lot of it came, and we see that too, came from COVID and came from, okay, we have different needs of how we're interacting with our customers, and our customers now have higher expectations about how they access our services and the rapidity in which they are able to access our services. Certainly, there was then the impact of layoffs across the industry, and customer service teams were hit hard by that in terms of personnel. And so, companies thinking about what can we do to augment and replace resources across customer experience teams, whether that be for onboarding or customer training or support teams. So a bit of an amalgamation of that investment. And then it's become the standard. That's now, I mean, you are talking to companies too who are purchasing software. And so that wasn't a question that I got 4 years ago about tell us about your customer education services if we're going to buy your platform. It is now. And it is an expectation that tell us about your customer community, tell us about your customer education services. And so I think that's the other piece where it's become now a standard feature for software.
Well, that's a great answer. I'll pile on with even one more. It's because it works.
Yeah.
It actually has a measurable impact, and add that to all the things that you talked about. But I like what I always forget about is I don't know how, but forget about how COVID changed everybody's minds
Yeah.
and expectations, and really
Yes.
raised the bar. And that really is an important driver in customer education that I fail to consider a lot. How about the maturity models? You, Yeah, take us through that real quickly. I know that's probably a podcast in its own, but
I know,
where do you
probably.
where do you start? Where do you finish up? What are the characteristics of a mature model
Yeah.
or a mature
I think
organization?
when I talk to customers or even prospects, and so when I say, what has your experience been so far with customer education? And they usually say, we're not doing anything. And so I always push back and say, I'm 100% positive that's not true. Um, and, do you have PDF documents that you send to customers that explain how to use your API? Do you have a welcome deck that explains how to add your first administrators to the program? Do you have a face-to-face call with your new customers with your implementation team? And they say, oh yeah, we do all that. I'm like, right, you're doing customer education. You just aren't calling it that. Or you don't have anyone who has customer education in their title, which is another thing in and of itself. But everybody is doing customer education if you have customers, but most people are starting at a really ad hoc level. So that's when we're talking about maturity models. Ad hoc is where you're providing education for your customers on your product, but you probably don't have an overall strategy. You certainly don't have a dedicated owner, and you probably don't have any dedicated tools for it. So you're sending emails with PDFs attached to it, things like that. So that's that ad hoc. And I think about 15% of people are there. And I think that's shifted. That number would have been a lot larger 3 years ago. And then coping, right? Where, okay, we've moved out of the ad hoc. We might have now an LMS, we might have a customer community, we might have a knowledge base. So we have some tools that we're using, and we're repurposing content that we had from some of our customer success teams or our sales teams. And we're now starting to have some shared responsibilities where maybe our implementation team is responsible for creating content for our customer university. I give that example because that's what we do. But you're, again, probably not at a place where you have a customer education platform, and you probably don't have anyone in your organization with customer education in their title. So that's the coping. And then emerging, so coping is where the majority of people are. It's about 35% of people are in coping. And I find that people, it's not the most positive term, but people really relate to it of, yep, that's how I feel. I feel like we're coping. Um, so then emerging, that's when you start, and I would put ourselves in emerging where we have basic processes established for how our customers interact with our customer education services. We have entry-level tools. So we do have a customer university, we have a knowledge base, we have a customer community, and we have some basic integrations built in those. And we now have some staff dedicated to that. So we have a community manager. Our onboarding team oversees our content alongside our marketing team, but still not in, we don't have a customer education organization. And then finally, mature. So this is probably less than 20% are here, but mature, I think of, and this is my definition of it too, of everybody in the company knows about your program, and they would be able to point to our customer education department and what it does to drive revenue, drive leads, cost savings, and it is a legitimate organization in your business. And that's where you have comprehensive strategies around your content, around your results, and you have a dedicated staff for those functions in your customer education department. So from ad hoc to mature, that's where we see people falling. And I haven't come across anyone who doesn't fit in one of those models.
Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting to see as you do these year over year how these percentages change towards the mature. I would predict that mature gets more mature faster here over the time, because that's where all the results are for the organizations where you are aware. Everybody is aware of you and your impact throughout the organization.
And
What
it's
about
possible the standards change too. So then what was coping, like the definition of coping might actually change in 2 years, and as the standards get higher, so that may shift as well.
Yeah, and so to that point, only 32% of the companies rated their tech stack as very effective. Sounds like they're coping. What's missing in the industry? Like, why do they feel like that? That's a small percentage satisfied.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one because, and when I talk to customers about this too, and they're looking for the one solution that is going to alleviate the pain that they feel around their technology. But customer education, and we hosted a focus group for our customers about a month ago at our customer conference, and this really hit home for me, and I don't think I'd sort of understood it so clearly, of the complexity of the data that you need in your customer education program is so different than if you're doing employee training. So employee training, you're looking at, did someone complete their compliance course? Did someone complete their onboarding program? Did someone complete their sales enablement training? But customer education isn't, the completion is not the point of it. The impact to the business is the point of it. And so what you need to do to drive your customer education program is to link together all the different technology and data sources in your business, your product, your revenue information, your support tickets, your CRM data. And so when I hear people struggling with technology, I think it is that somebody said to me, customer education is this octopus, right? It has these tentacles all going around the business, and you need to have effective ways to share and get data back to your technology. And I think most companies don't understand how the resources involved with that, and don't understand how to set up to strategically resource that.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. That's a good assessment on it, I think. How often do you think an organization can get product usage data and use that in the learning management system. Seems kind of advanced. I've run into it a few times.
Yeah.
What's your experience?
It's frustrating because it is, I think it is complex, and I would see most customer education programs who are doing that are probably in the mature model, but
Mm.
it's like such a table stakes thing of we're training our customers on our product. It seems like our product usage data should be the thing
Seems
that
important.
yes, yes. But it is a customer shared this with me too of it's an ask of your product team. So it's not an ask of your IT team. It's not maybe an ask of your data team. It's now an ask of your product team. And sometimes those lines of communication haven't been established of how the
Mm.
customer education team works with the product team. And I find that because I talk to our product team all the time about requests that our customers give to me about our product and how they think we can improve the product. So I talk to our product team all the time, but I don't really have an avenue, and we're working on this now, of where do I put in my asks of the product as it relates to what I'm responsible for in customer education? How do I help ask for a build of single sign-on between our customer university and our product instance? So I think some of it is the lines of communication, and then prioritization. And that's why probably the mature model is where you see this happen, because there's the at the top level of the business that will be prioritized, and that can be put on a roadmap, that can be set as a priority. But when you're still in that ad hoc and coping, it's really, really hard to get those resources and get that prioritized, because to be honest, people don't know who you are.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And that makes sense. That's kind of a chicken and the egg. And the reason you want that
Yes,
data, at least my perspective, the reason we want that data is say, okay, who hasn't logged in 7 days, or who's using this feature but not
yes,
this feature? And you can
yes,
use those as triggers to push the right learning. And that way you can, improve metrics everywhere, and from customer
yes.
support calls to knowledge of the program to renewals to everything, time to effectiveness. That's why you want that data, I think.
And I think, right, we know just-in-time learning is what we need to be doing both on our customer education side and on our employee education side. But you can't do just-in-time learning in customer education if you don't know what people are doing in the product. Like, and you're just saying Friday at 3 p.m. is our best guess of when would be the most effective way to deliver content. Like, we really, that the just-in-time piece has to include product usage.
When you figure out how to do it in your own organization, Francis, you should write a guide and teach others how to do
I know, I actually, there's a
it.
couple for the customers who have done it. We had them on stage with us, and that's actually what I want them to talk about, of just how did you do this? And it's simple, but it's also, a year of relationship building, and it's a year of establishing the credibility of your program, and it's about doing favors for other teams. And it's like, it's really it's not a technical question or expertise needed. It's a really complex business strategy about relationships and influence.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Well, one of those clients should come onto the show here and we'll talk about
I'd
it.
love to bring them. No, I'd love to bring them because I think they do. I think they did figure it out, but would say it's not a secret sauce. It's just a slog of making sure you know the right people.
Yeah, yeah. No, that sounds about right. You mentioned just a bit ago about training completions aren't the point. Consuming content, logins aren't the point. It's customer engagement with your training isn't the point. The point
Yeah.
is moving the business needle. What are the metrics that you worry about in your
Yeah.
organization?
Yeah. So I worry about retention. And I think that would resonate for where most companies are right now, that retention is what I'm looking at. So that's what I'm asking for our customer education tools. That's what I'm asking of our implementation consultants and our customer success managers, that we need to show impact on retention. So that's what we need to be able to say, that we have a digital customer training program, and the impact of that is that it improves our time to launch. And we know that our time to launch has a correlation with first year retention. Um, and so I keep anything about completions or number of enrollments or course satisfaction. We look at that, but we look at that in our own teams in secret. I keep any of those because people don't know what they mean and it sounds like not much is happening. And so I I am careful about doing this and advise other people that when I talk about our customer education programs, I talk about the impact that it is having on customer satisfaction, on timely launches, and on retention. And those are not causation. So we have to be okay with that. There's not a direct, our customer education program does not directly cause our customer satisfaction to improve, but it's a correlation. And so it's the correlation that you have to be comfortable talking about when you're speaking across the business and with leadership.
Hmm. Is it possible? That's cool. Is it possible to take those metrics, especially retention, and get that one step further into the revenue impact for the company or the fiscal impact of the company?
Oh yeah, I mean, so I think sorry, in retention, I mean revenue retention. So I mean
Ah,
that, right, we have a revenue retention goal and all of our customer education programs should be pointing to that revenue retention goal. And so yes, I very much want that to be in dollars and cents.
yeah.
And then but to your question about, or your point about product usage, right? We know things like product usage, adoption, those things are related to revenue retention or revenue growth. And so that's where you need to start building your sort of logical correlations between things of our customer education program drives product adoption drives revenue retention and growth.
Hmm. You got to make those change to revenue. I think. How about your clients? Are they measuring different things? Do you think that retention is a common theme, or is every organization different?
I think they're looking at satisfaction. So the majority of the customers that we worked with on this white paper are looking at customer satisfaction. Um, I think, right, if you unpeel all of that, that's revenue.
Yeah.
That is, satisfied customers are likely to renew and pay more. So I think that's customer satisfaction is what people are looking to drive in their customer education programs. But there's also cost savings, and sometimes people are less comfortable talking about that. But oftentimes people are looking for their customer education program to reduce the amount of face-to-face time that their teams are dedicating, whether that's to, smaller freemium type customers, whether that's to reduce the number of tickets that are sent to a support team. So I think cost savings is a piece there, sometimes harder to measure and sometimes less comfortable to measure because you're talking about maybe head counts or things like that. And so that's, maybe not the message that you want to take to leadership. But I think that's when oftentimes when people come to us and they say, we want a customer education program, they're looking to remove tasks and manual tasks from things that their team is already doing.
Yeah, yeah. I think another thing is it's not so much reducing headcount, but rather not adding as much headcount as you scale. So be able to be efficient that way is another part of that cost savings that I hear organizations talk about. Wow, over time already. This is a great conversation. So we'll jump down to the advice question. If you're stuck in the coping phase, how do you break out of that? What's your best advice?
Yeah, and I say this to everyone, and it sounds simple, but it's actually something that most people, it feels scary. You have to understand what's most important to your business. And education people in general, so L&D people, whether it's customer education or it's employee education people, we really like living in a bubble. We really like it there. And it's sort of, and we have a lot of expertise in that bubble. And so that's where we live in our data of completions and engagement and learner satisfaction and exam scores. And we are experts in that data. But if that's the world you're living in, you have to understand what's most important to the business. So, and you have to understand that in one word. So, right, is revenue growth most important to your business? Is revenue retention most important to your business? Is cost savings most important to your business? So start there if you don't know the answer to that question. And a lot of people don't. You have to find out. And so you have to have somebody that you can ask or go to your company OKRs. Like there is an answer to that question. But if you don't know, then you actually don't know what problem you're trying to solve or what solutions you need to put in place. Oftentimes, I talk to customer education people or people who are tasked with customer education, and they're doing their best to imagine what's most important to the business. And sometimes it comes from what was most important to the business 2 years ago. But if you dig into it and say, are you absolutely sure this is what's most important to the business now? And they're like, I actually don't know. And so I think that's if you're in that coping space, you have to understand that, because then that's when you can start having conversations with your counterparts across the organization to say, we're all unified around looking to improve retention. So I'm going to go chat with our customer success team and our marketing team to understand how customer education could improve the results that they're looking to achieve. And then what you can present here's the solution of how we're going to move the needle on some of this. But everybody wants it to be a product solution, or wants it to be a headcount solution, or wants it to be if only we had this many more completions. But it's not. Like you have to understand what's most important to the business. And that's then how you advance your career. That's how you make a program that gets you to the big table, right? That's where you want to be. Like, how can that's getting from coping to mature, is getting to the big table. How can I be invited to conversations and expected to be in conversations about what moves the business forward?
How do you make yourself indispensable?
That's it. That's it.
Sage advice. Frances Kleven, Senior Director of Customer Experience at LearnUpon. Frances, thanks for stopping by today. It's a fascinating conversation. Sounds like you've got your arms completely around the customer education world. So it's great to have you here teaching us all.
Thanks so much, John.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, listeners, we're going to put in the description a link to this customer education report. In addition, we have a customer education report we just released here at Talented Learning from what's called a buyer's guide that basically looks at the market from the vendor standpoint as opposed to the practitioner standpoint. So we'll put a link in the description for that too, as anybody that thinks this conversation is interesting. Both of those documents will be interesting also for you. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Talented Learning Show. It was great to have you here, and we'll see you on the 98th episode. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.